And the House Speaker, Nick Mattiello, voted against the bill. He's pro-life, and it's certainly not common for him to allow a bill to come to the floor that he doesn't support. But he says he recognized that a majority of his colleagues did support the bill, so he let it come to the floor, and everyone voted their conscience, with Democrats voting on both sides of this, Mike and Shannon. But she gave up her seat in the legislature representing Warwick, West Warwick, and Coventry to run for the governor's race. And of course, tonight we now know that she has been unsuccessful. But we did not see Mayor Jaisal Correa return here to Fall River City Hall after his arrest and subsequent court appearance up in Boston this afternoon. The mayor is adamant that he will not be resigning. Brian, this is a significant change for Governor Gina Raimondo, who has been hesitant to support recreational marijuana in the past. Do you have any comment on the recall efforts?
So we're ribbon cutting. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. Is the city trying to suppress the recall effort? And this has really been a common scene at the State House throughout this session. Pro-life and pro-choice advocates rallying here, just filling the halls, filling the rotunda. No plans to resign as a senator.
Mr. Kettle has no comment.
Can he serve his constituents with these charges against him? House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello decided to shut down the House session and send everyone home. His name scraped off the door, his belongings packed up. Senator Nicholas Kettle tendered his resignation with a letter hand-delivered by one of his attorneys. It was one day after Senate leaders filed legislation to expel him from the Senate. It would have been the first time in recorded state history.
This situation could happen again.
John Marion from good government group Common Cause Rhode Island says now that expulsion has been avoided, lawmakers should adopt rules for the next time.
We're very interested in how the process plays out up here, and what we discovered is they were sort of making up the process as they went along.
The Rhode Island Constitution clearly states the House and Senate can expel members with a 2/3 majority, but it doesn't say how or what sort of behavior is worthy of expulsion.
It's clear they hadn't thought about how they were going to come to a conclusion.
Marion says some states have a committee that investigates and then publishes a report recommending for or against expulsion before a vote actually happens. In this case, Kettle was facing serious charges, including a grand jury indictment of allegedly extorting a Senate page for sex back in 2011. Both Democrats and Republicans agreed he shouldn't return from the winter break, citing concerns for the existing student pages at the State House. But the ACLU sent a letter urging lawmakers to slow down the expulsion process so they didn't set a hasty precedent.
If you have a good process, a transparent process in place, then people aren't going to raise those questions like they did this time.
And the Senate president said he was grateful that Kettle resigned rather than put the Senate through the expulsion process. Kettle's attorney says he did not resign for that reason, but rather so he can focus on defending himself against the criminal charges. I'm Steph Machado, Eyewitness News. In 2015, lawmakers passed a law keeping the highest level of sex offenders 1,000 feet away from a school. But an immediate legal challenge means police have not been able to charge anyone under the law, nor can they make offenders move. It was mid-September when police put out a code red sex offender notification about a man living in a Cranston neighborhood who had sexually assaulted 2 women. He's level 3 at high risk to reoffend.
In this instance, the property directly abuts the preschool, so you can imagine the concern that's there.
Cranston Police Colonel Michael Winquist says neighbors started calling to complain. Someone put up a handwritten sign.
And obviously, those laws are in effect to protect people in the neighborhood.
For 2 years, police haven't been able to enforce the law that keeps level 3 sex offenders 1,000 feet from schools. Because of a class action lawsuit brought by 6 sex offenders, a federal judge put a temporary restraining order on the 1,000-foot rule.
Right now, there's nothing to stop somebody from living immediately next to a school.
Nothing happened. No child was harmed that precipitated this law.
Megan Smith from the House of Hope and other advocates mobilized after the 1,000-foot law was passed. Reaching out to sex offenders, the ACLU helped file the suit, in part claiming school was being interpreted so broadly it included places like dance schools or yoga studios.
Had the 1,000-foot law been implemented, it would have put 64% of the city of Providence off limits.
She says even without the 1,000-foot rule, few landlords are willing to rent to sex offenders. Dozens in Rhode Island are therefore homeless, staying in Cranston's Harrington Hall, one of the only shelters that accepts them. A tenuous arrangement because a state law passed just last week would sharply limit how many registered sex offenders can live in one homeless shelter.
If it is, in fact, signed by the governor and implemented, it would make 40 to 50 people immediately street homeless.
She says that could pose a problem both for the offenders and the public, and police say homeless sex offenders are difficult to track.
By having somebody have a permanent residence, statistics show that they're less likely to offend.
Congratulations.
75 representatives and 38 senators sworn into office for the next 2 years. The Senate re-electing Dominic Ruggiero to lead them, and the House re-electing House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello.
My number one priority will be phasing out the car tax and eliminating it completely.
47 members voted for Mattiello.
Speaker Mattiello has answered my questions and dealt with all of my concerns.
I consider the Speaker to be gender neutral when it comes to dealing with issues.
During the vote, you could hear from inside the chamber protesters chanting against him out in the halls.
Oh, hey, hey, ho, ho, Mattiello's got to go.
19 Democrats voted against the Speaker, part of a vocal opposition mounting since November.
I'm very firm in the belief that he is not ideal for Rhode Island, that he does not care about women.
It is, in fact, that bills aren't making it to the floor for a vote, and that bills, when they come to the floor, particularly in the last few days of the session, they come altered in ways that are often a surprise and a disappointment to us.
We asked Mattiello about that so-called Reform Caucus and their calls for change in the way things are done on Smith Hill.
We will make sure that our rules are fair, promote collaboration, are very inclusive to all, but that there's an appropriate screening process so bad ideas don't go through.
The start of the General Assembly session was just a few hours after Governor Gina Raimondo and other statewide office holders were sworn in a windy noontime inauguration. The governor touting the improved economy over the past 4 years in her inaugural address.
We've changed the way we do economic development, changed the way we invest in infrastructure, and changed the way we do job training.
Growing up,
it was 1975 that Jorge Elorza's parents, Aurora and Jorge, came to the United States from Guatemala City with their 1-year-old daughter.
They come from Guatemala, crossed through Mexico, and actually came through the deserts in Texas.
Elorza was born in Providence and grew up here while his parents were undocumented. They were factory workers. The family didn't have health insurance.
I always wanted to play Little League, but my parents would never register me for Little League. And so thinking back, I'm like, all right, it makes sense. They were always concerned about, who we give our name and our address to, not knowing about what the potential consequences would be.
Do you think that when your parents were coming to the United States, they could have imagined that their son would one day be the mayor of an American city?
No clue. No idea.
Mayor Elorza sharing his story only with Eyewitness News one day after President Donald Trump signed 2 executive orders to crack down on illegal immigration. On the campaign trail, Trump promised to deport all undocumented immigrants.
The president couldn't be more wrong on who immigrants are. The way that he portrayed us from the very beginning are, they're criminals, they're rapists. And, I'd love to share with him that, no, in fact, immigrants are less likely to commit crimes.
Elorza's parents and sister are now naturalized American citizens. He says very proud to be Americans, no matter how they got here.
I asked my parents, why did you do it? And to this day, my mom tells me, mijo, we did it so that you and your sister could have a better life.